Hello and welcome back to Perspectives. On today's show, as the Khalistan referendum moves to Los Angeles in the near future, the city begins laying out the red carpet to welcome Sikh voters. Meanwhile, over in Canada, as Trudeau's time as Prime Minister enters the final straight, the final push is on to find his successor. And an arcane piece of legislation installed by the British Empire in India back in 1925 has suddenly become of great interest to the Khalistan movement. Could this be the key to ensuring the Sikh community finally get their voice back in the Punjab and push for Khalistan democratically? Well, all this and more on today's show. But joining me, as always, for Perspectives is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus, and good morning to our viewers out there. I noticed some great comments on the comment board, some very thought out and provocative comments all the way around. So thank you for those. And yeah, by all means, keep them coming. And if you've got story ideas, share them with us. We'd love to share and take part in that, but bring what you want to the screen. So thanks again for doing that.
Indeed. And James and I together, we'll be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And we will indeed, at the end of the show, be taking a look at loads of your great comments, which have been pouring in. So thank you as always for those. Right, James, let's get the show underway. What are you going to start us off with this morning?
The red carpet is rolling out in Los Angeles, and it's not a Hollywood blockbuster premiere, but instead the Khalistan referendum is making its way into town. The referendum, as we well know, has taken place in cities around the world, and now it is Los Angeles' turn. And it's not the first time that it's been held in California, but it's the first time in LA. So let's see how that works out. I'm hoping that a lot of our viewers are not only going to attend and have their voices heard, but are also going to share some great photos and videos with us. We want to see not only the referendum events, but all of the events leading up to it, such as the many car drives and show and shines and yeah, the rallies that are going to be going on. And we'll take a look here first before we get into the story, but the car and truck Khalistan rally will be in Fresno March the 1st, Bakersfield on March the 8th, and Riverside on the 15th. So again, send us all of your coverage of that, because we are not going to be there in person, but we will definitely be there with you in spirit. Now, with the article that's on your screen, it's actually a generalized article that I wrote, and it has to do with all of the different locations that it's been held and what exactly the referendum is about. And I encourage you to share this with others, because this is geared towards people who are curious. What is this referendum? Why are we seeing all these amazingly bright and vibrant Khalistan flags throughout Los Angeles? Why are we seeing these car rallies? This explains it in a brief article to give people an introduction to what is going on. And we know from experience, being at the Calgary event that you can see images of in this article, but also through being at several of the events here in Surrey, it is an exciting day because there's a lot more than just a referendum vote taking place. It is about community coming out together, celebrating a history, a very rich Sikh history, and just really inviting the community to come and experience it as well. And through the events in Vancouver and in Calgary, I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was so exciting. The whole atmosphere was just so welcoming and so vibrant and energetic that I really encourage others that even if you are not able to vote, if you are not Sikh, go down and check it out, because believe me, you will learn a lot when you speak to people. Ask them questions about the Khalistan referendum that you may have. They are very welcoming to explain it and to invite you in to understanding. And that, I think, is going to go a long way, especially in today's day and age. I think that acceptance, understanding, and tolerance all grows from educating yourself and others around you. So again, it is really getting exciting in LA. I am following a lot of different people on social media, so I'm able to watch as all the signage is going up, as people are promoting it. They are putting decals on their cars, and just the energy is really palpable right now. Angus, it is exciting. And as you can see here, it is in the image, you can see there are volunteers there that spend their day not only to help with the polling stations and the voting stations, but for days ahead, setting up, putting up safety barriers, putting up, bringing in security, all of that. So again, it should be a great event, a happy and really exciting community location to come out to. And as I said, even if you are not of Sikh heritage, come out and enjoy it, learn, just be a part of it and support the democratic process. And that, at the end of the day, is what it's all about. It's about the democratic process for those who not only are campaigning for an independent and free Sikh nation known as Khalistan, but also for that part of the community that may not support it, that may want to vote no in the referendum. And that's the beauty of it, is that everybody's treated equally and invited, regardless as to what side of the vote you may be on. And that is true democracy. That is the true sense of a community. And that is what Sikhi is all about. And that is acceptance of each and every person as an equal, Angus. And I think that Los Angeles is going to be really an exciting place to be during the referendum.
Absolutely, and that is what it's all about. The key word is democracy. This is why India hates it. This is why India has targeted Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon, one of the co-founders of Sikhs for Justice, and behind this very referendum. They hate the fact that the Sikh community are getting their democratic voice. This is what they tried so hard to remove from the community in the Punjab, which they have succeeded to some degree, but they can't do very much about the diaspora. And this is an outpouring of democratic joy. It's wonderful to see, and you only need to see the turnout at each iteration of this referendum, whether it's Sacramento or indeed over the border in Canada. Every iteration of the referendum has seen a massive turnout. It has been a sea of yellow, wonderful, colourful Khalistan flags. Families have turned up. It is a joyous occasion. It has been a time for families to turn out, and it is, of course, a time for people to express their opinion. And of course, being in a free and democratic nation like the United States, and of course over the border with you, James, in Canada, people have a freedom of expression and a freedom of speech, and they have the right to say either yes or the right to say no. A joy, a simple human right that they are denied in the Punjab. So, when we see this taking place, when we see it actually on the ground, it really does, it endorses how solid our democracies are here in the UK and overseas over the Atlantic in the Americas. Because these referenda can be held without fear. They can be held without fear of intimidation, despite what Hindutva might try and do online. But the fact is, again, India hates the fact that the Khalistan movement can exist quite happily and be quite vocal and take to the streets and protest and do all its things without fear, which it cannot do in India once again. And this is really, this almost resentment sort of drips through social media when Hindutva get on the case. They just hate to see this. They hate to see this manifestation of democracy, this manifestation of the very movement that they fear so deeply. This is why they are trying to bury it. This is why they're trying to destroy it in the Punjab. This is why they're trying to deny its very existence. Because they know it remains as an existential threat to, certainly to Brahmanical control, but also they realise that this is the groundwork. These are the foundations of the breakaway of the Punjab into Khalistan. And the final point is, yes, the Hindutva and the Modi government have been so at pains to point out that the Khalistan movement is made up of terrorists. Well, all I need to say is look at the media, even the mainstream media, who are now looking at these referenda, who is covering this story. I don't see many terrorists in these gatherings. All I see are happy families of all ages and all backgrounds turning up for a good day out, and of course to cast their democratic vote, James. That is what matters.
It is, Angus, and as I said, I mean, it's just been so exciting to be at some of these venues where it's happened and in the communities, because the community really benefits as well by all of this and bringing just a joyous event to the community, bringing people together and to unite. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So again, even if you are non-Sikh, get out there and check it out. Talk to the Sikh community. Find out what it is about Khalistan, why it's so important, and the history going back to partition in 1947 and beyond. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So get out and celebrate, get out and enjoy it. And again, if you are able to vote, get out and vote. And as we're talking about voting, we're going to come back north of the border and talk about Canadian politics. The final push, of course, we know that the federal Liberal Party in Canada is selecting a new leader. And it looks like Mark Carney is in the lead of that race right now. But again, anything could happen. Chrystia Freeland, the former Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, is also pushing ahead with her drive to become the next leader of the Liberal Party and in de facto the next Prime Minister of Canada. Now, we do anticipate that a snap election will be called once the new leader has been announced on March the 9th, and that will take place in Ottawa. And we expect that there's going to be a lot of people there that'll be going into Ottawa to really be there to I guess you could call it a celebration of sorts of a new leader for the Liberal Party and for the final departure or swan song of Justin Trudeau. Now, we know that there has been a lot of talk about foreign interference and such, and this vote by the Liberal Party is not without scrutiny, and it is going to be watched very closely, not only by the party officials themselves, but also by outside sources, including the RCMP, among others, to ensure that it is that the integrity of this vote is continued with the restrictions and the guidelines that are laid out. Now, as we talk about that, we know that the candidates that are in line for the vote are really giving the last minute push now to really get their opinion over the line or to get their cause over the line. And it should be noted that they had to declare, once they filed the paperwork, they had to actually file a $50,000 refundable deposit to make sure that they were ready and serious to take on this challenge. And should they also proceed with it, there's another $350,000 to be paid in installments that are due by February the 17th. So it's really interesting to see how this whole party nomination and election vote takes place. Now, when it comes to the actual votes, there are approximately 400,000 registered Liberal members in Canada, and with that, each one gets a vote. Now, these go towards the ridings, and there are 343 different federal ridings across the country, and each one is allocated 100 points, and they're distributed based on ranked preferences until one of the candidates secures the majority. So once that happens, then they will announce on March the 9th, because pre-voting is already open now, and March the 9th, they will in Ottawa announce the winner. Once the winner is announced, then it'll be up to them to call an election. They could wait until November, or they could call it early, which I'm thinking they may just do. And the main reason I say that is because the Liberal Party has actually gained momentum, serious momentum, since the announcement of Justin Trudeau's resignation. Now, with that said, the Conservative Party has really lost a lot of ground. And for the first time since 2021, the Liberal Party has actually pulled ahead in the polls of the Conservatives. And this is a big concern for the Conservative Party. It's only by a few points. And with the Angus Reid polls and such, there's about a 3.4 to 3.5 error of margin on the plus or minus. So it doesn't fall within or outside outside of that scope. It's actually within that margin of error. So it really is going to be a tight race. But I think that the Liberals, if Carney is to be the one who leads them, will have more of a chance to call a snap election and win it, as opposed to Chrystia Freeland. People will want to kind of see something from her because she's been at Trudeau's side for so many years. They may just look at it as a repeat of voting for Trudeau. So I think that it's going to be to her detriment that she's going right now. Now, there are others who are running on it, Karina Gould, as well as Rubadalla and Jamie Baptiste. And it's going to be interesting to see how it goes, Angus. But right there on the screen, you can see the Fairmont Chateau Laurier, which is located right next door to the Parliament. And I do believe that they are probably already booked right up for this event because it's going to be a big change for Canada. It's going to be an election that's based on what the mandate is going to be in terms of dealing with tariffs and dealing with the new geopolitical climate that's out there, Angus. Just like I'm sure, the UK and other countries are concerned about what their mandate is and pushing forward with a strong message.
Yes, this is an interesting update. I didn't realise that the Liberals had pulled so much closer to the Conservatives in the polling, and this actually is quite an interesting turn up for the books, because I think, certainly not that I've been following Canadian politics closely, but I'd almost written the Liberals off in this next election. I just assumed it was going to be a handing over to the right wing. But that doesn't appear to be the case, at least through the latest polls. And this does really matter because, of course, if they are polling so close, it does mean it opens up all sorts of interesting connotations of outcomes. If there is a clear winner, then we will know, obviously, once that election, once the votes are counted. If it's right-wing, as well, we thought certainly in the earlier part of this year, or certainly over the last couple of months, as I've assumed it was going to be a Conservative walkover, well, then politics shifts significantly in Canada, and that will have a massive impact. We do know, of course, the Conservatives really, let's just say, have a I wouldn't say the friendliest of relationships with the Sikh community, so that might not necessarily be a good thing for the community. However, of course, the Liberal Party, as we know, have had a very good relationship. It's had its up and downs like any political relationship, but ultimately Trudeau has been a magnificent voice for the community. Again, not always perfect. There have been a few issues, but he stood up for the community superbly through the whole Najjar case and, of course, the ongoing transnational repression. So the Liberal Party has fantastic credentials in terms of the Sikh community. Now, of course, Trudeau's successor then is going to colour that relationship into maybe a different shade. What does it mean? Mark Carney, I've mentioned Mark Carney before. He worries me slightly from a I would say, a completely different point of view, in that he used to be, for some bizarre reason, he was the governor of the Bank of England for a few years here in the UK. And I personally held him responsible for the housing bubble through his own economic policies. He kept interest rates so inexplicably low. He must have had a very good reason for it, but I'm damned if I could ever work out what it was. And he created a dreadful housing bubble through which prevented so many young people being able to buy houses and get on the housing ladder, etc. But that's another issue. But he does, of course, come with a credentials of he's a globalist. I think he's associated with the World Economic Forum, etc. There is that whole side to him which concerns me, I have to say, from certainly from a distant perspective. I don't know if he will be good for Canada. Personally, I don't think so, but again, that's a very personal opinion. How would he feel about the Sikh community? Honestly, we don't know. I don't think many people probably do know what his thoughts are about the Sikh community. That will be an interesting one. Chrystia Freeland, likewise, I don't know very much about her, James. Well, we'll see. Is she following literally in the footsteps of Trudeau? Will she just literally follow the same path? Who knows? We will see. But I think the really interesting connotation of this, if the polls are indeed to be believed and that margin of error does keep the Liberals within shouting distance of the Conservatives, then if there is a hung parliament, if suddenly the election results come in and suddenly all those parties, the two main parties are running around looking for partners to form a government, then of course that brings in Jagmeet Singh. The NDP suddenly, they may be the kingmakers. They may suddenly find themselves once again in this absolutely critical position of being the prop to hold up a government. And of course, being a prop backdrop to hold up a government means you wield some power, albeit a small sword, so should we say of Kirpan length, but indeed it is powerful, it is symbolic, it does mean indeed that you hold influence in the government. So Jagmeet Singh could find himself once again in a critical position where he does actually have this ability to ensure that the Sikh community does have an inherently disproportionately good, strong voice in policy making in the next Canadian government, James. So yes, as you say, I think this suddenly has opened up all sorts of fascinating possibilities.
There are, Angus, and one of the concerning things that I noticed was that the NDP and the Bloc Québécois have also lost ground to the Liberal Party, which is very interesting as things unfold here. And I think that there really needs to be a push by the NDP to get more visibility and to get more policy out there. They've kind of been a bit quieter. And even as far as that goes, we've invited Jagmeet Singh to be on our program and to sit down for an interview. And we keep getting responses from his people saying they're trying to work on it. But of course, nothing, they don't ever get back to us with a date. So I encourage any of our Canadian viewers out there, send an email over to Jagmeet Singh and ask him, hey, why aren't you on Perspectives? Why do you keep putting him off? The other thing that I'll add to that, Angus, is that as far as Freeland is concerned, she has negotiated before with Trump. She has gone toe to toe with him in his first term, and she did not back down. She actually stood her ground and did very firmly stand against him, and actually forced him into a position of backing down on some of the tariffs during the first 4 years. So we'll have to watch and see how that works. And again, the Bloc Québécois losing a bit of ground, that's not a surprise. But at the end of the day, they really are not a legitimate party to take the control of the country because of the fact that they are essentially a Quebec party, so to speak. They are definitely there and have a very valuable place in the Parliament for representation of Quebec and their culture and their regulations and that, because they do have some autonomy in Canada. So I think that it's essential that the Bloc Québécois remain in Parliament and have that voice. But at the end of the day, I don't ever see them actually being in a position where they're a threat to any of the leaders on a national scale, Angus.
Indeed, and so we'll follow this very closely, as I say, because it does open up some fascinating possibilities for the future for the Canadian Sikh community. Right, let's stay with politics, and I'm going to talk about just a slightly weird. It's not weird; it's significant. It is slightly weird. It's a slightly quirky story, but this is one of these examples where historic, arcane pieces of legislation can actually unintentionally have a major impact on future events. I'm going to go back to the year 1925, when, of course, the British Empire was reeling from the First World War. It was in decline, but it still controlled India, the subcontinent. And of course, it was controlling the legislative platforms that were controlling the subcontinent as well. And I'm just going to recap slightly, and I would refer our audience to a show that we did on the 5th of December, so towards the end of last year, the 5th of December. And it's all about Punjab politics, the politics of the Punjab, and all about the getting the democratic voice for the Sikh community within the Punjab, which, of course, as we often say, has declined over recent years. Certainly since the BJP took power in India, they have done everything in their power to dilute and ensure that the Sikh community's voice just vanishes. They lose that influential democratic power. Now, on the 5th of December, in that show, I gave a complete breakdown of the politics of the Punjab. I say complete. It was a summary breakdown of how it's all working and how the Sikh community have lost its voice. I'm just going to slightly recap a few elements of that, just to remind our audience how it all sits, because this sets the foundations for this interesting move on this piece of legislation that was instituted by the British in 1925. So, just to recap this sort of hierarchy, let's call it, that exists within the Punjab. Of course, as we often talk about, the RSS, this organisation, this Hindutva fascist organisation, which has been around for a very long time in India, they essentially control Indian politics. They have become increasingly powerful. A large part of the Lok Sabha are members of the RSS. Even Modi himself has been nurtured, even from a young boy, up through the ranks of the RSS, this fascist organisation, this extreme Hindutva right-wing organisation. So the RSS has its fingers all over Indian politics, and of course, indeed, through the diaspora and through, in fact, across Europe and North America, through various institutions of academia and politics, etc., etc. So the RSS is the big bad wolf, let's say, and it's their agenda that is infiltrating everything. It is their agenda to drive out the Sikh community. They see the Sikh community as an existential threat because the Sikh community see the RSS for exactly what they are. So, in the Punjab, we have the political party, the Shiromani Akali Dal. This was a political party formed in the early part of the 20th century, which was designed basically and simply to give the Sikh community a voice. So the Sikhs formed this Shiromani Akali Dal to represent them politically. Now, of course, they had their own traditional Sikh structures and organisations that existed since the Sikh Empire, but to fit in with the constitution and the new political structure that was unfolding and evolving across the subcontinent, across India, they formed the Shiromani Akali Dal to at least give them a voice in that new political structure, which at the time was brought in by the British. Now, the Shiromani Akali Dal, as we have since reported, has been effectively controlled by RSS influenced and RSS placed people. And of course, the key characters there are the Badal family, who we've talked a lot about. The Badal family, there was Badal Senior, Prakash Singh Badal, who I think died about 10, 12, 15 years ago. He was one of the key characters who controlled the Shiromani Akali Dal, or took control. And then his son Sukhbir Singh Badal again became a key character of the Shiromani Akali Dal. Now, the RSS agenda has always been to, as I say, dilute and weaken the voice of the Sikh community. They don't want the Sikh community to have any form of political voice because it will empower the Sikh community to then start attacking and threatening the RSS. So they have had a deliberate policy. They've targeted the Shiromani Akali Dal, and they've targeted to destroy it, or at least to wrest control of it away from the Sikh community into people who are controlled by the RSS. And that is what they did through the Badal family. The Badal family, of course, being heavily affiliated with the RSS. So the Badal family got involved in Punjabi politics. Sukhbir Singh Badal, the son, he served twice as the Deputy Chief Minister of Punjab. He was a member of the Lok Sabha for the Firozpur Lok Sabha constituency. And of course, he was recently the president of the Shiromani Akali Dal. So, of course, again, this is how the Akali Dal, sorry, I beg your pardon, the Shiromani Akali Dal, the SAD, have been or became a mouthpiece of the RSS. In other words, they ceased being a voice for the Sikh community. And of course, Sukhbir Singh Badal recently fell foul of, well, recently has been fallen foul of the Sikh community for quite some time, but finally he did meet his comeuppance. In fact, it was in December, shortly after the show, that the Jatadar of the Akal Takht, I'll come on to the Akal Takht in a moment, declared him as Tankaya. Basically, his behaviour had been provably not on behalf, he effectively had not been speaking on behalf of the Sikh community. He had embarrassed himself on behalf of the Sikh community. He had been offensive, religiously offensive to the Sikh community. So they removed him from his post and they declared him Tankaya. And he would be declared Tankaya until he atoned for his sins, for want of a better description. So that is the Shiromani Akali Dal. Now, of course, the other element that enters the equation is the SGPC. Now, the SGPC, this is now where it starts becoming relevant to what we're talking about in 1925. So the SGPC is this organisation that was formed by the British back in 1925. The SGPC was designed, it was created to dictate to all the Gurdwaras what their policies will be, and it was created to control all the Gurdwaras, all the Sikh Gurdwaras in India. And in fact, actually specifically speaking in the Punjab, as it turned out, and other SGPCs were then formed in other regions to, as it turned out, to control the Gurdwaras in other regions. But it was formed essentially to control all the Gurdwaras, or Gurdwari, whatever the plural is of Gurdwara. Now, the SGPC is governed by a president. The president is voted for by registered members. Now, this is where, again, the problem of the RSS comes in, because, of course, the SGPC became another target of the RSS. The SGPC, again, because it represented the Sikh community, it became a threat to the RSS. So the RSS decided we need to control the SGPC as well. So they did this, as it turned out, through the Shiromani Akali Dal. Now, the Shiromani Akali Dal has a massive influence on the election of this president of the SGPC. The president is voted for by registered members of the SGPC, but of course the SGPC over recent years has been so heavily influenced by the SAD and in turn the RSS that its policy making and its policies and its president have been leaning towards the policies of the RSS. And the new SAD, let's call it. And it's moved it further away from the Sikh community. So the Sikh community have started to move away from it. They've disengaged from the SGPC. They've become less and less involved in it. They've resigned their memberships. The young are not joining as members, as registered members of the SGPC, because they see the SGPC as not representing their voice. So why would they want to be a member, a registered member of an organisation that doesn't represent them? So in turn, this means that the RSS has managed to infiltrate even more and gain more and more control, because of course it's members and it controls the registered members who in turn vote for the president. The president thus controls the SGPC. And by that method, again, the RSS has wrestled control of the SGPC away from the Sikh community. So unfortunately, the SGPC has now fallen effectively into the hands of the RSS through its proxy of the Shiromani Akali Dal. So the other party in this equation then is the Akal Takht. Now the Akal Takht, known literally as the throne of the timeless one, the Akal Takht is the most senior of 5 takhts. Takhts literally means seats of power of the Sikh community. So these Panj takhts, these seats of power of the community, are effectively the religious core. They are the religious organisational leaders of the Sikh community, of the Sikh faith. And the Akal Takht is the most senior, it is the most important. It is the one that is actually located within the Darbar Sahib, the Golden Temple complex in Amritsar itself. So it lies at the heart geographically and of course symbolically of the Sikh religion. The Akal Takht itself was built by the 6th Guru, Hargobind Ji, as a place of justice and consideration of temporal issues. It is the highest seat of earthly authority of the Khalsa, and it is the place of the Jatadar, the highest spokesman of the Sikhs. The Akal Takht remains relatively independent still. It still has not been so infiltrated by the RSS. It does remain almost the last bastion of the Sikh faith, the last bastion of the Sikh community, and in turn of the Khalistan movement. And this is the key. And it is this relationship between the SGPC and the Akal Takht that has suddenly become very important. Now, I did say in that show on the 5th of December that the Akal Takht is effectively controlled by the SGPC. It is the SGPC that stands over the Akal Takht, that controls it. Now, actually, that is not the case. And this is really where it suddenly becomes very interesting. It's all very arcane and it's all very detailed and a little bit, why is this all so relevant? Well, it is very relevant because of a very clever thinking by the Khalistan movement. The Khalistan movement of course, in the 1980s and 1990s, wanted to break free after 1984. The Khalistan movement grew into this massive militant movement. They realised that under Indian control, Indian brutality, it needed its own sovereign state. Of course, the Khalistan movement does have a longer history than that, but it certainly grew legs in the 80s and 90s, but through militancy. But it realised, and after a brutal, terrible, I would say just a series of massacres, genocides, let's call them for what they are, the movement was brutalised into submission. And it realised that militancy was just not going to win the day. The movement has gone away since then. It's licked its wounds. It's sat down and it's thought, we need to be more intelligent about this. We need to attack this. If we want Khalistan to happen, we are going to have to be a little bit more clever, a little bit more 20th and now 21st century about this. We're going to have to play the game. We're going to have to do it by their rules. They control the game. Okay, let's play this game by their rules. And those rules are, of course, democracy and peace. They realise they can only win this. That Khalistan can now only happen through democratic and peaceful means. And to win that, of course, again, the rules are effectively made up by the Indian state. They are controlling the game. They change the rules as they go along. And they're making this game extraordinarily difficult. But the Sikh community are cleverer than that. They realise, okay, if you're going to play that game, we will play the same game, but we're going to play it very shrewdly. We're going to be clever how we do it. And we're going to play it by your rules. Even if you keep changing the rules, we're going to keep playing by those rules, and we are going to win it step by step. And it is those steps that are key. These are the small stepping stones that we often refer to. These are the stepping stones that need to be put in place to win this democratic battle for Khalistan. So, I'm going to refer to this 1925 Act that was installed by the British government. The Sikh Gurdwaras Act of 1925 was introduced to transfer control of Gurdwaras from hereditary Mahants, they were the religious leaders, to community management under the Shiromani Gurdwara Parmandat Committee, the SGPC. So this 1925 Act again created the SGPC, and it at the time it democratised. It gave the power of control of the Gurdwaras to the people, away to some degree from the hereditary Mahants to the people. So it was a democratic move. Now, the SGPC was established solely to manage historical Gurdwaras in the Punjab. And as I said earlier, other states, Haryana, Delhi, formed their own SGPCs to cover their areas. So the Act provided democratic oversight for Gurdwara. A crucial question remains, does this Act extend to the Akal Takht? Again, why is this important? So unlike a Gurdwara, the Akal Takht is the highest Sikh authority, as we've talked about. It does make decisions for the Panth. It issues hukamnamas, excuse my pronunciation. These are the religious decrees across the diaspora. It affects the global Sikh community. And as I said, it was established by Guru Hargobind in 1606. And it has historically functioned independently of any governing body. That's important. So the Act does not explicitly put the Akal Takht under the SGPC. The SGPC governs Sikh Gurdwaras, but it does not clarify whether these 5 takhts, these Panj takhts, including the Akal Takht, are included. So there's an ambiguity there, and it's an important ambiguity. It raises this crucial question, is the Akal Takht merely a Gurdwara, or is it a distinct religious political institution? Now, many in the diaspora argue that this Act was only intended for Gurdwaras, not the Akal Takht. Now, why is this important? Because the Sikh community and the Khalistan movement want to regain and reclaim Sikh sovereignty, the Akal Takht suddenly becomes an extremely important institution. If it's not covered by the Act, for reasons that we talked about, then the SGPC has no authority to appoint or remove its Jatadar, its leader. Before 1925, the Jatadar was chosen by the Sikh Panth through the Sabat Khalsa. This is this organisation, this get-together. In fact, I'll read you the literal meaning. It was a biannual deliberative assembly, a bit like a parliament in a democracy, of the Sikhs held in Amritsar during the 18th century. It literally translates to the entire Sikh nation, but as a political institution, it refers to meetings of the Dal Khalsa and the legislature of the Sikh Confederacy. So essentially, it was a get-together of the community to make these democratic decisions for the community that affects the community. As I was saying, so before 1925, the Sabak Khalsa would be the way that key political and religious decisions were made. Many believe this traditional system should be reinstated, ensuring that the Jatadar answers only to the Sikh community, not to the SGPC. So what it's saying is by reinstating the Akal Takht as the most important power and the democratically controlling body for the Sikh community, it removes that RSS influence. It's saying, we're not interested in the Shiromani Akali Dal anymore. We're not even interested in the SGPC. They do not represent us. It is the Akal Takht that is the most important body that represents us both politically and religiously. It is only the Akal Takht that can dictate religious policy and all these policies that are important to the community. So it is trying to say, look, legally we're now saying, because we say that the SGPC does not control the Akal Takht, that we don't recognise the SGPC anymore. Yeah, you can still have it, but that does not represent us. It's the Akal Takht that represents us, and we still control the Akal Takht. That's the important point here. So, if the SGPC's authority over the Akal Takht is therefore invalid, as we hope to prove, and the Sikh Federation UK again at the forefront of this, if they can legally prove that there is this fire break, let's call it, between the SGPC and the Akal Takht, that the Akal Takht is not falling under SGPC control, the Sikh community really gets its power back. So, what the Sikh, and again, when I talk about stepping stones, this is an important stepping stone to put in place. This is putting a key foundation stone in place upon which this democratic Khalistan movement can build its foundations in the Punjab, and the Akal Takht is one of those key stepping stones. But the first thing, and again, when I talk about them moving intelligently, they've realised, they've looked ahead and said, look, we need this power base in the Punjab that only represents us, that hasn't been diluted, infiltrated, stained by the RSS. It is pure. It remains a pure part and a pure voice for the community. So they must establish the Akal Takht as that. So what they're saying is, what can Sikhs do? If the SGPC's authority over the Akal Takht is invalid, the community must act. So solutions include, first of all, holding a Sabak Khalsa to democratically select the Jatadar, forming an independent Sikh religious council for Takht-related matters, and launching an international awareness campaign to challenge SGPC control over the Akal Takht. In other words, this is mobilising the community to say, no, the SGPC does not legally have any control over the Akal Takht. It cannot, under Indian law and under the rules, these rules I'm talking about, under these rules that India have set, it does not have control over the Akal Takht. So, and the Sikh Federation UK once again have recognised this as an important point. And so their call to action, the Akal Takht is the heart of Sikh sovereignty. If Sikhs want self-governance and freedom from political interference, it is time to question, to discuss and to act. The future of Sikh leadership depends on it. Signed by Sukhvinder Singh. He is the lead exec of international engagement within the Sikh Federation UK. So, this, as I say, it's all a little bit arcane. It's all a little bit, a bit detailed and all a little bit political, and all the sort of the political details of the governance of the Punjab and etc. etc. But it really matters, as I talked about the Khalistan movement having to think intelligently. It needs to put all these key foundation stones in place, whether it's approaching legally the United Nations, whether it's forming the Sikh Federation International to become that united body, to approach the United Nations and all the key legal global entities to establish Khalistan. It also needs to put these weird low-level things in place, this basic democratic foundation that can take the Khalistan movement forward locally in the Punjab, and the Akal Takht is the key foundation stone for that locally in the Punjab. That will be the core that will, form the initial government. This will form the governing body that will take Khalistan forward. This will form that first foundation stone of Khalistan. So they've realised this, and they said, well, the first step we need to do is remove it from the SGPC, because as soon as India realises what's going on here, they're going, or the RSS realise, they're going to use this hierarchy and back down to the SGPC, and they're going to instruct the SGPC, you've got to nip this in the bud, you've got to kill this movement, you've got to kill the Akal Tax move towards independence, because that is the final bastion of democratic voice for the Sikh community. So they will attack this. But again, this is where the Sikh Federation have recognised this is what we need to do. We need, first of all, to ensure the Akal Tax remains independent and pure, because that is the core from which will grow the local Khalistan sovereign movement within the Punjab. James, it's all, as I say, it's all very arcane, very complex, but this is absolutely critical step to establishing Khalistan.
Absolutely. And it's just like building anything. You've got to have a strong foundation, and you've got to have a very structured plan. And this, I think, is a big part of that foundation and is the basis to get the plan moving forward when the time comes. But at the same time, you can't wait until that point to lay out all of these technicalities and to make a final judgment here. It needs to be decided beforehand so that it's a part of the evolution of the whole process and of the management and governance of Khalistan when it happens. Now, we've talked about the Badal family a lot in different stories and such. We've talked about the Akal Tax. We've talked about a lot of different things in the Lok Sabha and the different ways in which it is approached and the different ways that it fails or succeeds. And again, this is such a big part of moving forward for Khalistan and laying that foundation, as I said. And it's very similar to the U.S. when you go all the way back when they used to call out that we the people, by the people, for the people. And that is essentially what you're looking at here as well, is making sure that the power is with the people, not with a certain group or with a certain political outlook and such. It is about the people, for the people.
Absolutely. And when you build a wall, as the Khalistan movement intends to build this wall around Khalistan, the foundation stones are the most important. You've got to build the strong foundations first, upon which that wall can be built. Right. And these are parts of those foundation stones that have been built. So, yes, as I say, it's slightly arcane, but it is a fascinating and interesting hand. 1925 legislation could be the key to founding Khalistan.
Very, very educational as well, Angus. That was very interesting.
Indeed, absolutely. So that's what we're here for. Let's hope our audience think likewise. Okay, let's move on to our comment section, James. I'm going to have to rush through these because we're running out of time, as always. Yes, Hat B, thank you for this comment. We talked about the tours of Oxford, and Hat B says that you attended a Sikh walking tour by Rav Singh at Hampton Court last year. It was very informative and interesting. Well done to the whole team. Absolutely, and I think the more of these tours that happen, the more people become aware of how many fascinating and high-achieving characters from the Sikh community have existed and do exist within our communities, James.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to have to take a look and see if there are any of the tours here in Vancouver, because we do have a very rich Sikh history here in Vancouver. And if I can find one, I'm definitely going to check it out as well, because I think it's a great idea, not just at the university down south, but I think it's a great idea to expand elsewhere.
Indeed, and talking about high-achieving Sikhs, here's one. Thank you, Gurbachan Singh, for this. Please shed some light on the life of Princess Sophia Dulip Singh. Of course, Sophia Dulip Singh was one of the daughters of Dulip Singh, who we talked about, particularly in one of my podcasts last week. The final Maharaja of the Punjab, of the Sikh Empire, beg your pardon. So I did this is a quick summary, and I don't have much time. This is a quick summary. Thank you for pointing this lady out. Really, talking about high achievers. Princess Sophia Alexandrovna Dulip Singh. She was a child of Maharaja Dulip Singh, as we talked about. He was the last Maharaja of the Sikh Empire, who was subsequently brought to England. Now, Sophia's mother, who Dulip married, was Bamba Mullah. She was half German, half Ethiopian. But her godmother was Queen Victoria. This shows the relationship between the final Maharaja and Queen Victoria. It was Victoria who took him under her wing and nurtured him. effectively as a prisoner. Let's not beat about the bush. Anyway, but Sophia herself, she lived in a grace and favour accommodation, Faraday House, as it was called, at Hampton Court Palace. We talked about Hampton Court about the tours. Thank you, Happy, for that. Yes, indeed, Sophia found herself at Hampton Court Palace that was donated by Queen Victoria. During the early 20th century, this is where it starts getting interesting, Sophia was one of several Indian women who pioneered the cause of women's rights in Britain. Yes, she was a suffragette. Again, a typical Sikh fundamentalist here. I mean, she stood up for equality. I mean, even though, and I don't know if she was, I guess she might have been brought up as a Christian like her father. I don't know, I'll have to check that fact. But even if she was, the fact that she was standing up for women's rights just shows how inherent her Sikh, almost by genes, her philosophy was. She stood up for women's rights. She's best remembered for her leading role in the Women's Tax Resistance League, and she also participated in other women's suffrage groups, including the Women's Social and Political Union. She became one of the best-known suffragettes. So there you go, James, another fascinating, high-achieving Sikh.
And again, our comment section keeps us on our toes to keep wanting to learn more as well. So, it's a great comment. It's a great thing to bring up. And thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you, Gilbertjan. That was an interesting insight. We must look more into her lifetime. Hopefully one day we'll cover that. Human says Trump needs leverage to close deals in the US's favour. Yes, he absolutely does. And he is a master of negotiation. He can't control the media, though, as you absolutely say. All I would say is the media, certainly here in Europe, have been so vociferously anti-Trump. It's become embarrassing almost. But it's interesting how they've suddenly had to do a handbrake turn, James, when he became president. Suddenly it's like, oh, Trump, yeah, he's actually not so bad after all. What a surprise.
Well, I'll leave that one alone. Angus, we'll move on to the next comment.
Indeed, absolutely. Let's swiftly move on. Mr. Man, demanding Khalistan...
You don't want me to get ranting.
Yeah, we don't have time for a rant on either side now. We're running out of time. Mr. Man says, demanding Khalistan in the Punjab means getting killed in fake encounters or jail. Yes, absolutely. This is why the referendum has to be held in places like Los Angeles. It can't be held in the Punjab because we know what will happen, James.
Absolutely. And the suppression of rights and the suppression of people to have an opinion of any sort. We know how that plays out in India. So again, yeah, it's a sad reality that you can't hold something so precious in a country that claims to be so so diplomatic and such a big democracy. It just makes you shake your head.
Indeed it does. And Deep Singh, talking about Khalistan, using AI is a brilliant idea to find out more about its future. We need AI to help build the nation through its bureaucracy, government, etc., etc. Well, what I would say is, don't worry. The movement is already well and truly on this. The foundations, as I said, are being laid by all the various organisations. There is a team, I do know. I don't know much about the detail. I've obviously not been involved in it. I need I get information filtered through when I hear it. But ultimately, don't worry. They are very much on this. They realise that they do need to put these foundation stones in place. They do need all these governmental infrastructure to take the nation forward, and it could happen very quickly. So they do need to be ready. So yes, James, as I said, they know what's needed to run the nation, and they are putting all those pieces into place.
Absolutely. And that's what we say, it's important to lay the foundation now to build on as it moves forward. The progression may be very rapid at some point where it just really jumps forward. So it's about laying that foundation, having it solid to build upon without it crumbling. So.
Right, our story about the kirpan and that influencer here in the UK, the Sikh influencer who had to remove her kirpan to put it on the X-ray conveyor belt. And I did ask our audience, who have kindly, as always, thank you, all of you who contributed to this. Thank you for your insight. This is really interesting. Much appreciated your educational comments on this. Starting off with 5AAB. And you say that Guru Gobind Singh Ji ordered the Khalsa to never be without a weapon. It should always have a weapon. And I'm sure if he was here today, you're saying the Khalsa would demand that Sikhs, Amritdhari Sikhs, carry a gun. But certainly a kirpan is a must. And it's formed by two words, kirpa, meaning the Khalsa should have mercy, pity and blessing, and an, meaning honour, self-respect. And then Harmak Singh Khalsa goes a step further to say The kirpan is an article of faith. Removing it temporarily to put it through the machine is okay, but it's not about that. And these next two comments really explain it's not so much about just the physical act of removing it, it's the symbolic act, it's the principle. The British system allows wearing the kirpan, yes, absolutely. So the Sikhs should, by principle, wear it through the airport. But yeah, in principles, the lady should have stood by principles, which is what she did. That is what Sikh teaches. The question of putting the kirpan through the machine is thus a no-brainer. And 1S1 and 2 likewise really follows the same theme. It's all about the principle. And again, it has the bigger picture. It's all about sovereignty, the struggle against oppression. Because by removing the kirpan, you are effectively submitting to something you might not believe in or you might not agree, but essentially it is a form of oppression, indirect oppression, to remove the kirpan. So again, it's all about the principles. So yes, effectively, I think, James, the argument there is, yes, we have a right to wear it. It is a recognised right. Yes, there is a reasonable argument to say it can be removed to be put through the conveyor belt, but ultimately it's a bigger story than that. It's about the sheer principle. Why should I have to remove this? Because by asking me to remove it, you are oppressing me. And that, I think, is the key message, James.
Absolutely. And I mean, it is a tough one, Angus. I have a tough time with this. I understand the principles. I understand the significance of it. But let's also keep in mind that it is not beyond the realm of possibilities that the Hindutva would infiltrate that system by pretending to be a Sikh and to, have a kirpan. It is not beyond the realm of possibilities because they sink to the lowest of lows, some of those extremists within the Hindutva group. So again, I understand the concerns for safety, but I think that there is a legitimacy to sticking by your principles as well. And believe me, I've stuck by my principles and opened my mouth when I should have shut it in the past. So,
and actually,
I get it. I really do.
Yeah, and I think there's a key point you made there. Dirty tricks. We've got to watch out for Hindutva dirty tricks because as they become increasingly desperate, because they are losing this war, as they become increasingly desperate, they will resort to even dirtier tricks. So we do need to keep an eye out for that. The community needs to watch out for that. Right, a few shout outs after James asked you, our audience, to let us know where you're calling from or where you're watching from. Always fascinating to know. Lakwinda, I know one of our long-term watchers, always great from Chicago. Daljeet Singh Man in California. Pamathwal in Toronto, that's near you, James. We've got SSKK here in the UK. Welcome to you. M. Verdi, again, I know one of our long-term watchers from the USA, of course. And I'm delighted to see Jinder Kaur watching from Australia, James. So we do indeed. Thank you, Jinder Kaur, for letting us know we do have watchers in Australia. We didn't know, but it's lovely to see confirmation of that, James.
Absolutely, and that's amazing to see. Thanks for all of you watching, and by all means, for everybody else, feel free to throw in what city or what country, wherever you're logging in from, because we'd love to know where you are. And again, if you have story ideas, feel free to share those as well.
Indeed. So to all our audience, wherever you're watching from, far and wide, thank you for your attendance, and do let us know where you are watching from. And the final comments, suck to right. This is a weird one. SBAI multipilar big tech paratruth. And John Kaler comes in, what is this SBAI? Now, I wondered this because Suck21 has made this comment several times over many months. And I thought, what is this something that we should know about? And I did want to ask your audience, what does it mean? I think, and I did a little bit of research, it does look like it's a rival channel. I don't know, but what I would say to Suck21, if you're watching, let us know, because unfortunately, if you are trying to advertise your channel, I've let it go so far, but ultimately we're not here to advertise your channel. We may start removing it, so please do let us know if you are, or if you are, please refrain from that and please just contribute. But you've had your shout out, so there you go. Handar Video says, I love your program. You guys doing a really good job. Now, I laughed about this. You're not supposed to take it off at any cost. Now, when I first saw this comment, I thought you were talking about the program. Of course, I think you're talking about the kirpan. You're not supposed to take it off at any cost. But James, I'm going to interpret that as you're not supposed to take the program off at any cost. And I agree with you. You're absolutely right. We will not come off air unless we are physically dragged off air, James.
Sounds like what my ex-wife used to say. Do not take it off at any time.
So until they drag us off there, no, we will try and remain here as long as we can, and certainly keep your curb pans on as well whilst we're at it. Final comment, Sam Singh. We will see freedom in our lifetimes. Yes, we will, James. We will see Khalistan. As we said, the foundations are being put in place. It is going to happen, James.
Absolutely, Angus. And just another comment, just to address very quickly. Somebody had brought up the Hondichilar massacre, and I will cover that on Monday. So I'll educate people on that because I actually have been researching it and learning a lot about it myself.
Great stuff. Looking forward to that, James. But unfortunately, we must bring perspectives to a close for another day and indeed another week. But don't forget to keep those comments coming in. Thank you so much for all your comments. As we have said, some brilliant comments, some really fascinatingly informative and educational comments. Thank you for those. Do keep those comments coming in. Do help educate James and myself about these finer points and details about the Sikh community and Sikh philosophy and indeed Sikhi itself. Don't forget you can message us directly at message@satlogetv.com if there's anything you'd like to bring to our attention directly. But in the meantime, that is it for another week. Thanks so much for keeping faith and keep watching us. But we must draw things to a close. It is a goodbye from me. It is a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you next week.